Thank you very much for joining us today, and thanks for having me. My Finnish doesn't exist, so you'll have to accept my English hopefully today. Hopefully you can all understand me well. As mentioned, I come to you from Vancouver, Canada, and one of the things that I think, I travel around the world about half the year speaking at events, talking about research that we do on malware and criminals and the whole dark ecosystem of things that are happening to us. And the other half, on a good year, I've spent in our labs actually doing that research. And one of the things I've been recognizing the last few years as I've been traveling and talking to IT professionals and governments and police and all sorts of people working on trying to help build our defenses, is that we're really hyper-focused on technical things and technical solutions and technical problems, right? We look to buy another piece of software or a new analysis tool or another appliance or another thing that's going to do something, and we identify that there's problem A over here, and then we look for technical solution B. And we're way too often maybe not spending enough of our efforts considering the psychology and the sociology of what we need to also do to build an effective defense for our computer networks and our data and our staff. And so I've been putting quite a lot of research into this the last year and a half. It helps that my wife has a psychology degree. She's been helping me along with some of this, but that's what I want to talk about today, is kind of moving beyond this security awareness training set that many of us do of, let's show our employees what a phishing attack looks like, and then hopefully they'll not click on the next one that happens, and moving more into how do we actually embrace our staff and bring them into being sort of an extension of our security that we have responsibility for as a company, and embrace them and kind of try to make it more of a culture of security, of thinking safe first, thinking private first when we're dealing with sensitive information, and having those people feel that there's an open line of communication between those of us with the technical responsibility to protect this information, and yet the actual people who deal with it every day aren't members of our team. So that's what I'm going to discuss. My job is rather unusual in that I don't do with our products or anything. I do a lot of public speaking and press on the research that we do at Sophos, and most all my time is spent in a 787 when on a good day, because that at least means I'm going long enough that I can sleep. I travel a lot, and I get to hear voices from all over the world, and I think it's pretty interesting to see how we're all approaching these problems from different directions, but we all are facing much of the same threat. So let's talk first about kind of where we're at with the problem. If I'm a criminal and I want to break into a network, or I'm interested in stealing some information, I kind of have two options, right? I can go after you technologically. I can go after the firewall, IPS, web filter, email filter, endpoint protection. We've built this large defense in-depth structure in most of our businesses now, trying to surround that important data. So I can try to bypass all of that stuff, or on the left-hand side of the screen here you see a much easier target. That's my colleague John and I. Recently we were in Marseille, and we were sharing a bottle of wine and assortment of cheeses at a friend's house. And if you think about it, it's a lot easier to exploit that than it is to try to exploit all of this, right? And we're starting to see that trend accelerating, right? 1 year ago, if I stood here and you asked, how are people being victimized by ransomware? I would have said, well, 70% of attacks come from drive-by websites that have been compromised, and they attack your Java and your Flash and your web browser. 1 year later, it's 70% of the attacks are social attacks through email that have no technical exploitation at all. They're 100% targeting the person behind the keyboard, not the web browser or the Flash plugin, right? So this is a complete shift for the way we think about defending ourselves, because we are soft, easy targets compared to the reasonably solid defenses we've started to build. So, the keys to all of this social engineering stuff are kind of preying on these 5 or 6 core things that all of us as humans have a tendency to share. And since none of our salespeople are here, I don't think, hopefully there's none of our salespeople are here, because these are the same tactics that our salespeople would use to sell to you, they're the same things the criminals are doing to exploit you, right? If any of you buy product, always buy it the last week of the quarter, right? You're always going to get a discount from the salesperson the last week of the quarter. If you can buy this week, I'll give you 20% off, right? Buy now. There's time pressure. You've only got 7 days to decide, but if you can get me the PO by the end of the month, you're going to get a discount, right? Because the salesperson has to make their quota, and they're going to do what they have to do to get your business. The criminals are using some of these same techniques, and what we have here in the top here with the cat, we have curiosity, and that's where many of these email attacks are starting now, right? They catch you off guard, but it sounds like something that might be real, right? Here's an invoice, an unpaid invoice is being sent, it's attached as a PDF, you owe 1,327 euros, thank you, the accounting department. That's strange. I don't think I owe anyone 1,300 euros, but if I do, it's a mistake, and maybe I should open it, because I'm curious, what could it be? I need to know who it is so I can call them and tell them it must be a mistake, right? Because I don't owe you 1,300 euros. But that curiosity gets us to go, well, I probably shouldn't ignore this. It sounds important, but I don't know if it's important because I haven't looked at it. So I'm probably going to click the link, or I'm going to open that attachment. Of course, we also have habit. I couldn't think of something to represent habit better than cigarettes. Having been a former smoker, it's not the easiest thing in life to quit, so I'm familiar with the habit. But we have lots of other habits, and we have to consider that as part of this security education and awareness in our organizations. You have a team of people in your finance department. Some of them, it's their job to pay your bills, and some of them, it's their job to receive money from your customers. Their job is to open up documents all day from unknown people. It's their job. So we shouldn't criticize them when they are in that habit and they get that email that says invoice and they open it, right? It's their job to open invoices. It's our job to educate them and perhaps provide a safer environment or a process for people whose job it is to open outside documents all day and create a different process for them that helps protect them against potentially malicious documents, right? But that requires knowing our business. We have to know where our risks lie within our business. And in human resources, they open CVs. That's their job. So we need to help them do that more safely and invest time training there. And that training may not be necessary for sales or marketing. That's not their job. They do something else. So we got to spend our energy and our money where it makes sense. Of course, I mentioned the time pressure. This is primarily, we're seeing this primarily being used right now in ransomware. If you've seen any of these ransomware attacks, there's almost always a timer on the screen. Pay 300 euros, 500 euros to get your files back, and you have 72 hours, 71. And if you don't pay, your files are going to vanish. So don't think about whether you should pay or not. Respond now, before it's too late, because if it's too late, you're going to lose all your files. And so we don't want you to have time to think about it. And lastly, we have trust. And I actually have I managed to find one good Finnish phishing attack yesterday while I was in transit at the airport in Helsinki. I don't speak Finnish, so it was hard for me to search for Finnish stuff in our databases, but I was able to find a postie fish that was in Finnish. And again, this is the trust, right? Take a brand that you trust and you know, and you're less likely to think and you're more likely to click. If I send you a fish for your Apple credentials and it looks much like a legitimate Apple email that, in fact, Kimmo talked to me about at lunch that he had gotten one just this week in Finnish. You're more likely to just click, especially if it's in good Finnish, right? If it's in English, or broken English, you know it's fake. But when it's in Finnish, you might not even think about it, because it's unusual, and if it's correct, it must be real, right? I'll click it. And the same is true of Postie, Finnair. These are trusted brands that you know and you're familiar with, and in particular, when they're a Finnish brand, you're going to, if the email's in Finnish, be even more likely to believe that it's true, and that trust is what the criminals are counting on, that you won't think about it, that you'll trust. And of course, for many of us, it's our job to help other people. And that's another place where we need to focus our risk management as an organization about potentially losing data and how we're going to train our staff better. If you have people in technical support roles or help desk roles, they're paid to help people. So if I'm a criminal and I call on the phone and ask for information, they're very likely to give me that information, right? So we need to have processes around how do we verify that someone's an employee at our company when they call on the phone? How do we validate their identity before we reset their password? or maybe even before we disclose internal information about our structure. Like if somebody calls and, hey, could you tell me the name of the director of finance? It's probably a bad idea to tell a random stranger that type of information about your organization, because it can be used in a phishing attack the next day to pretend to be the director of finance, right? So we need to help, we want our staff to continue to help people, but we need to teach them some processes around how to help people safely and verify that things are the way they appear they really are. And we're seeing a lot of this right now with these bank wire transfer scams. These are happening all over the world. Just doing some rough calculations, it looks like maybe 10 to 15,000 of these are successful a month right now against small businesses around the world. And what they'll do is they'll phish one employee's Outlook web access credentials at your company. And once they have an inside email account, they now have access to your entire corporate directory of email. So they know everybody in their positions because they can look in the address book as if they were a staff member. And then they start impersonating staff, trying to get them to wire money to accounts that are in the controls of the criminals, pretending to be customers or normal business partners that you often transfer money to. And of course, they have access to all of your sent items, so they know who you do business with, and they know who you talk to, and they know how you talk about them. So they can do all this research by compromising your email and pretending to be an insider. So some of these things are rather difficult to defend against, and I'll talk about some defenses in a few moments. It's always good to ask our staff to help us, right? The criminals are asking them to help them. They're asking your staff to wire the money somewhere they shouldn't. So we should also be asking our staff to help us. IT security is not the responsibility of the IT department. It's the responsibility of the whole organization. We have to have support from our management. We have to have support from the board. We have to have support from everyone. Our tech support staff, our receptionist, our finance people. Everyone needs to be a part of the team that's working together on this. And this is a picture I took at Apple headquarters in California at One Infinite Loop. And where all the smokers go out behind the building to have cigarettes on their break, Apple has a sign, no tailgating. Apple ID must be present. You must tap your ID on the sensor to come into the building. By just putting that sign up, I stood out there for about an hour and a half before a meeting. Just sat in my car, watched. Every single smoker closed the door behind them. And then the next person who they've worked with for probably 10 years put their badge in, came in, closed the door. And then the next one, open, close, open, close. Just asking them was enough to get them to comply, right? Having that reminder there that you should do this, it's important for our security, and they all do it. So it never hurts to ask. People do want to help. So the criminal tactics, we're all pretty good at how many of you have a Nigerian prince uncle? Right, yeah, a couple, okay. Well, you may be more susceptible to some of the emails I get than others. But we're all pretty good at kind of knowing that this is junk, right? We all get this stuff in our mailbox, no matter how good our spam filter is, no matter who we're using. We get the, Russian luxury goods and the Nigerian princes and, all these different sorts of things. Of course, the 650,000 US dollars from the Agricultural Development Bank seems highly likely to be right. But this is part of how we fall for the good ones, right? We have this self-confidence that I spotted the bad thing this morning. I don't really have a Nigerian prince uncle, so I'm pretty good at this, right? When the bad emails come in, I see them every time, and I hit delete because I'm really smart, and I can see when the thing is wrong. So when the thing is right, it's much more likely that I'm going to fall for it. So this was the postie, it's a little cut off here. This was the postie fish that I had found in our spam traps, and of course it's asking for any of those credentials for you to log in to check on the status of your package. And it's localized, right? And now I don't know whether the finish is correct. One of you would have to tell me that. It's correct enough that I can't read it, so it's not English. But that's the kind of thing that, because of thinking we're good at it, we're much less likely to spot it. Here was an Apple one I had gotten in English just about 2 weeks ago. And as usual, I was at an airport, so I didn't have my laptop. And it was mobile responsive. You can see I took these screenshots on my Android phone. And the criminals, not only have good websites that look like the real ones, they even format them for mobile if you visit them from your phone. And it's quite believable. In fact, this email is almost identical to one I received from Apple just a few days before. And there's one thing wrong with it, actually, that you can spot. which I won't ask any of you to spot because it's rather hard, the Apple logo is on the wrong side of the email. In real Apple logos, the Apple logo is usually on the right, and it's on the left. I don't know who would know that though, right? Like you would, and again, on a mobile phone, how do you tell where that continue and sign-on link actually goes? You know, most of us aren't going to hover over the thing for 10 seconds on our iPhone to figure out where it goes. So we're more susceptible because we have less information to make a decision. So these things are getting pretty sophisticated. You can see the ID, if you can see at the top there, it says itunes.com-signin is the domain. So hard to spot for people. I went through our spam traps quickly just to look for some Finnish stuff. These were things I was seeing just the last few days, targeting our customers in Finland and some of our Finland spam traps, pretending to be emails from our HP printers. Here's the scanned document that you just scanned over at the printer, and your printer can email you your scans and your faxes and things now. So you can see all the attempts here that they were sending thousands of these to our customers, trying to get them to click these. These are all ransomware. And here's some other ones again. If you're using something like Skype for Business, where your phone system's tied into a digital phone system, you'll often get your voicemails now as an email through your PBX. And again, that was another tactic they were using. They were just randomizing telephone numbers, randomizing different names, saying you have a voicemail from a person, trying to get you to open the attachment. Again, those were ransomware attacks. And even more scary to some degree for us, we're starting to see criminals selling information and they're combining it together to make more sophisticated phishing. This particular one was in the UK, and we believe the data was stolen from the Tesco supermarket chain. There was a breach at Tesco's about 2 years ago, and they stole the frequent shopper club database. So it had people's name, phone number, email, and postal address, and then you get that little barcode shopper card to say you collect points when you shop for your groceries. And what the criminals are now doing is they're mail merging the stolen data into their spam runs to give it more credibility. So these spams were going out to people saying you owe 847 pounds. The invoice will be sent out to and their real home address and postal code. So people again got panicked and thought this must be real. It can't be a spam. They have my home address and postal code. This must be some mistake. I have to contact them. I don't have 800 pounds to pay. That kind of thing. And the click-through rates on these campaigns like this are 2 or 3 times higher than a normal spam campaign because of that personal information that's being included. So I haven't seen anything like this in Finland. Hopefully we won't for any time soon, but it's something to be thinking about. This is the direction that the criminals are going, and this could be happening here as well before we know it. And depending what type of industry you're in, especially if you're in something like defense or something very sensitive, really carefully consider how much information you're putting out there, back to who's your director of finance. LinkedIn is a best friend of anybody who wants to break into a company. I mean, everything you could possibly want to know about what job everyone has and what they've been doing so that you can impersonate them is there. And then if you can look up their LinkedIn and tie it to their Twitter or their Facebook, you can find out when they're on holiday, you can find out all kinds of other things that you can use when you're impersonating them to make your scam more believable. And one of the defense contractors at Sophos that we do business with now actually has a company policy. When you're hired as part of their employee policy, you're not allowed to publish anything about your responsibilities or your role on LinkedIn until you finish your employment with them. So when you leave the company, you're welcome to say, I was the vice president of marketing and I had done this and I managed 500 people or all this type of stuff. But while you're with the organization, currently on a contracting situation with a major industrial contractor, and that's it. You cannot say what you do, just as another measure to try to keep that information from getting into the hands of those who are crafting rather targeted attacks at those organizations. And of course, we can't train our way out of these problems either. These are some example major websites that have had malicious advertisements on them in the last 90 days. And while it's probably, we all know it's inappropriate to do sports betting and pornography and things on our computers at work, that's not really where all the problems are. I mean, more than 80% of the infected websites that we see on the internet are actually, legitimate websites like the New York Times and the BBC. They're not something that we can avoid to stay safe. We need to be able to recognize when something goes wrong, and if we go to the BBC and our web browser crashes, what we want to happen is we want you to pick up the phone and call IT and say, something just went wrong, because that web browser crashing probably means it was exploited, right? But right now people just ignore it and move on. So this is sort of part of this training as well. Is things are going to go wrong. What we want is people to tell us when they go wrong so that we can work together to limit the damage and fix it immediately. Whereas right now, people close it and hide it. And then 3-4 months later, we find out, oh, you opened that document from that email in January, and now we find out that your computer was compromised for 6 months and all this information's been stolen. So we want to shorten that window by having staff help us. So that's what we're going to do about it. We have 3 things we got to focus on. We have people, processes, and technology. And without all 3 of them, we will fail. I could give you €1 million and you can buy every product in the world and all of my products and everybody else's products, and you will fail. If you don't have processes around it and how you're using it and an understanding of how you're managing your risk, and of course, invested in your staff, both your technical training and your IT staff, like is offered by our sponsors here, or also investment in our general staff, the general population at our companies, about what to do when they see something, what to look for, and then what to do when they see it, and then have programs in place to encourage people to participate. So the people, there's a few things you can do. As silly as these posters are that we've had around for years, the motivational posters, that, you know, the cat hang in there and all this stuff. The reason we use them is they work. They don't work for everyone, but my wife worked at Nokia for 7 years, and they actually did quite a few studies on some of this within her department, where she was working at the time. And you know, half to 3/4 of people, after seeing those things in the break room regularly about changing their password or this, that, or the other thing, actually comply. There's this subliminal thing that happens. Even if you think they're silly, they work. It's another tool, so use them. What we're doing a lot of at Sophos internally now for this is we're identifying sort of security champions or sheriffs or chiefs, or I don't know what word you want to use. But we're trying to find the people in our company who are really passionate about security that don't work in security. So we offer a once-a-month meeting in our Vancouver office with free pizza in the break room, and we do a training thing on phishing or web attacks or just different stuff. And then we see who shows up. And it turns out after you have 3 or 4 of these, it's like, wow, Sally in the IT help desk has come to the last 4 meetings that we had. So either she really likes free pizza, or she's probably quite passionate. She wants to learn more about this. Maybe it's a hobby. Maybe she's just really interested in it. So let's see if she wants to kind of be a liaison between the IT security team and all the other people in the help desk. Because if there's somebody sitting at the help desk with all the other people all day long who's an expert more on security, maybe we send her some training. We make sure she knows that she has a direct phone number to call me anytime she wants to report an incident if she's concerned about something. And then the 30 other people in the help desk that sit on the same floor as her, if they've got something suspicious on their screen where they would have closed it, now they get up and they walk over to Sally's desk, because it's right there, and they've been friends for a year. And they go, Sally, is this normal? Should I report this? That's what we want, right? We want people to feel comfortable and open to share with our IT teams, but we need kind of embedded people all around our organization. We need somebody in finance, we need somebody in help desk, we need somebody in marketing that's trusted by their peers, that they feel comfortable talking to about these things. And if we can identify those people, we can send them to some training, which is good for their career. They can put it on their CV, something they may be personally, maybe a hobby, maybe something they're interested in. And it's a way for us to both empower our employees and also get more information coming in, earlier incidents being reported to us more quickly as things are happening. We have to be careful not to shame people when they make mistakes. It's a very bad habit we have in IT, historically, especially at least in the US and Canada and Great Britain. You know, for a long time, it's like, we told you not to click the attachment, right? I mean, Britney Spears is not sending you naked pictures. Stop opening those, right? Like, you know, we yell at people, we chastise them when they report to us that they made a mistake. And then they don't want to tell us the next time it happens, right? Then they hide it, and they're not sharing it with us. We have to turn that around. And my favorite way to turn it around is money. It's the cheapest training program you'll ever have. We offer a €100 gift card in each of our offices here in Europe to staff for a drawing every month for somebody who reports a security incident. So everybody reports a phishing attack or a security incident or somebody tailing into the building. We put their business card in a fishbowl in IT, and then once a month we draw it, we give a €100 gift card. It's the best €100 they ever spent. Like, it's the cheapest thing ever, and it gets everybody to, they recognize they're welcome because you're willing to give them money. They know they're welcome, right? So they all want to report stuff, and you can't get too many reports because the important things you won't find. Your staff will. You need their help. And we have to, you know, I'm out of time largely, but what we have to do is we have to fix this chart. That red line on that chart is internal discovery of breaches, and it's going down. We're discovering less and less of our own breaches when they happen. And the purple line there, that's the police calling and saying they found your data on a server in Latvia, and would you like to press charges? Right? And that's going up. So we're finding out about our breaches after our data is found stolen somewhere. We have to change that trend. We have to get our staff to help us. So on that, I'm going to skip the process because it really was just going to be about 5 minutes about risk management. What we're in the business of in IT security is ultimately risk management. And if you're following good risk management practices, we just have to keep going around the circle, right? This is a process. We set our policies, we try to prevent bad stuff. We keep a close eye for when we failed, to detect that we failed. When we fail, we clean up, and then we go back and update our policies, to learn from our incident, hopefully prevent it from happening again next time. And this monitor for compromises, tools only detect a small part of this. It's your people that are going to tell you. And you have to find ways to get them to participate in your program. I hope you found that informative. I really appreciate your time this morning. Maybe I'll learn Finnish before I'm invited back, but it seems unlikely. But I'm very grateful for you tolerating my English. And if you have any questions, I'll be around for a little while this afternoon. Thank you very much.